So we'd ask you to rise if you are comfortable and introduce yourselves. Okay. Yes, Cindy.
It is my pleasure to introduce the quartet that will be singing this morning. Tenor Dale Stocksleen, we all know Hal Halverson, and Marcia Ellis, and I'm Cindy Steele. And we realize there's a misnomer on the front because, yes, it says the Ephraim Moravian Quartet. However, I'm a member here, so we've decided that we are the ecumenical quartet.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Others. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Judy Corbet. I bring greetings from Second Unitarian in Chicago. And I was telling Bob that the first time I came to this congregation was when you started out at SCAN. How many years ago? I visit you once a year, and I'm always very grateful to find you.
Okay. Nice to have you. Yes.
I'm Christy Wagner. I'm from Marquette, Michigan, from the Union Church there on the shores of Lake Superior. And I've watched you online. And I know Christina from Appleton. I was there for 3 months. And it's nice to meet you.
Welcome. Well, yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm Kathy White, and this is my wife, Kathy Demers, and we are from Wauwatosa, which is the Milwaukee area, here for the weekend. And we go to Brookfield Unitarian Universalist Church West.
Mm-hmm. Welcome. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're Mark and Margaret McChesney. We're here from Hull, Vermont. We were married in the Unitarian Universalist Church at Hyde Park in Chicago 32 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we came out to a wedding last week in Duluth of my nephew and a couple nights in Minneapolis. And my wife's family's had a house on North Bay since the 50s.
Oh, wow. Great. Well, welcome. Anyone else? Yes. Sam.
Sam Carmen, this is Vicki. We have not been here in quite a while. It's good to be back. Feels like home. You were members here. I think I counted up members for 17 years and friends for several years before that. So it's great to be back. Feels like
Oh,
home.
Sam, it should feel like a home. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm your guest speaker, Christina, and this is my husband, Brian, our little one, Ellis, our older son, Nevin, and this is our new foreign exchange student son, Hugo.
Welcome. Welcome. Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Laura Hart, and I'm visiting from Alabama, and we are here today to hear my beautiful sister sing in the quartet.
Okay. Wonderful. Nice to have you. Anyone else? Okay. Now, if you have other announcements this morning, Wilma will now bring the microphone around to you. If you would raise your hand and introduce yourself, and then any other announcements right now. Yes, Carrie. Oh, no, you gotta have it. You gotta have it. Yeah, you gotta have it, Carrie.
They're pulling rank, Carrie.
Okay. There are a few tomatoes that I brought in from our garden in a blue basket out there, and anyone is welcome to them. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane Wise, and I'm part of the committee called the Outreach Steering Committee, which is really our third Sunday project. And I just wanted to remind everyone that you can donate anytime, just not on third Sundays. And there are some envelopes like this out on the counter right outside in the foyer. And if you want to donate something today, you can put it in the envelope and just write third Sunday or Outreach Steering or whatever you want to write on it so we know what it's for. Thank you very much.
And those offerings at the end of the year will be divided evenly among three
partners in our community who are doing wonderful work. It's the Northern Door Children's Center, the Housing Partnership of Door County, and the Climate Change Control No,
Coalition.
Climate Change Coalition of Door County. Thank you.
Don't we wish it was climate change control? But, okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be back playing here, and just a little bit about the music. I always like to offer some of the concepts behind what is chosen. I have to say I was quite taken with the description of Frankenstein's monster. We are a mishmash of many things, which will be part of the theme today. So the music is kind of a mishmash of different traditions. And also language. I thought usually I try to steer clear of titles that have gender issues with brethren today, or the second piece is My Shepherd Will Supply My Need, which, obviously with referencing Jesus. And the last piece coming from a Scottish folk tune. All of those just feel like they fold into what is possible within the Unitarian tradition. The hymn also, the number 300, I just wanted to point out, is actually a German chorale that dates back from the 1500s. So the music is really pulling from many eons today.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. It's always a privilege to have you with us. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Just a couple of other items before we begin our service. Please remember to silence any devices if you have any with you that might disturb us this morning. If you're having any difficulty hearing during any time in the service, please raise your hand and Dave will be on the lookout for that, and hopefully we can adjust the sound a little bit for you if that's an issue. Following today's service, we'd ask you to join us for refreshments in the gathering room. I saw M&Ms in there today. So please come on over and join us for coffee refreshments. And we'll start our talk back about 15 minutes after the service. That will be a chance for you to visit with Christine and talk if you wish, and we'll meet in this corner of the sanctuary about 15 minutes after the service. Listen for the chimes and you'll know when to come in. So we welcome today the special music that we have from the quartet from Ephraim Moravian Church and Cindy Steele too. And we're happy to have you with us. We heard them rehearsing beforehand, and we're in for a treat a little bit later in the service. Also today, welcoming Reverend Christina Leon Tracy. Christina is not new to our fellowship, but we welcome you here. Christina has been at the Appleton UU Fellowship for the past 7 years. And prior to Appleton, she served as Faith Development Minister at Unitarian Universalist Church in Annapolis, Maryland. And during a recent 4-month sabbatical, Christina studied Spanish in Costa Rica and has started teaching English to Spanish-speaking newcomers to the Appleton community. And as Christina has introduced her family, we welcome to all you guys. It's good to have you with us, and a special welcome to Hugo and his introduction to Door County. So thank you. So now we begin our service with the lighting of the chalice. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance for who we are. Here, we are part of a beautiful tapestry. May our lit chalice remind us that we are people taught by different stories, with many voices, but always one people. We're working for a world where love creates justice, and justice brings birth to peace in our hearts and in our world. And now if you would join me as you're able and in standing for hymn number 145, As Tranquil Streams. emerge and flow as one. We seek to see our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought as lifeless greed. Free from a social covenant to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids us all in of truth adventure boldly and explore. Pathetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. Please remain standing for unison affirmation and doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, and celebrate within the caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, in every land by every tongue. Thank you. Please be seated. So next we'll go to our joys and concerns. Our joys and concerns give us that experience that we call living and sharing with one another. By sharing our joy, we can spread it to others. And by sharing our burdens, just knowing that others are aware can help to soothe their souls. Do we have anybody that has a joy or a burden? Karen? Here's a mic coming for you here.
I went to my 65th reunion from high school. The joy was that we had name tags, which we didn't have for the 60th, and it was really embarrassing. My sadness is of course, that over half of our class has passed away, but the rest of us were there.
Okay. Anyone else? Sarah?
I have a joy. Bruce Nelson, our buildings and grounds captain. When you walk in the building and you see those green awnings that are so signature of Green Gables, the place we moved and built our home. Well, for quite a bit of time, it had a lot of mold and it looked like a lot of bees deposited their pollen on it. And we're like, how are we going to clean this? And it would be crazy expensive to repair this custom molding. Well, he walked up on a ladder. He had to bring his 20-foot long ladder and he used eco-friendly products and elbow grease. And now it looks like a brand new awning and it just makes more pride to our home. So thank you, Bruce, for that extra specialness.
Hey. Okay, anyone else? Oh, Beth.
I guess I'm making up for lost time for not being here a lot. A joy. Thank you all for the flowers in my honor this morning. That was just a really special touch that I'm deeply appreciative of. It's really wonderful to be back and playing in your midst. A concern for a friend of mine who has a home here in DC, but is now in her other home out in Washington, DC, just talking with her on the phone. She wants to remain anonymous, but I'm just holding her in my heart, and her husband is really struggling, and she's his caregiver. And I just said, I'm holding you in my heart, and I'll bring you in our midst this morning. So just sending love out to a stranger, to you, a friend to me in our midst.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We'll next go to taking our offering for the day. We'd encourage you to give generously to the work of our fellowship. If you can do so here, or go online to our website at uufdc.org. And so now we'll enter into our moment of quiet. From Howard Thurman: sometimes in the stillness of quiet, if we listen, we can hear a whisper in the heart, giving strength to weakness, courage to fear, and hope to despair.
Let my foot fall on this sacred earth tread. lightly as a falling leaf. Let my shadow from this blessed sunshine no run from the light. Let my death beneath these holy stars grow stronger with the years. Let my heart expand wisdom. Those who go before, hold high the steady light that shows me where I am, that shows me where I am.
Thank you so much. In the previous version of our Unitarian Universalist Association's Article 2, which famously listed our 7 principles, these were the 6 sources of inspiration. They were the less famous cousin of the 7 principles. These were the sources of inspiration that our congregations were invited to draw from. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. That was 1. We like a lot of words in Unitarian Universalism. Number 2, words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. 3, wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. 4, Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. 5, humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against the idolatries of the mind and spirit. And 6, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Now, the current version of Article 2 lists this section simply as inspirations, and here is how it reads. Direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder are primary sources of Unitarian Universalist inspiration. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. We respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which these sources were created and are currently practiced. Grateful for the experiences that move us, aware of the religious ancestries we inherit, and enlivened by the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. When I first became a Unitarian Universalist, I was at that time emerging out of fundamentalist Christianity. And I was most attracted to the six sources. I admit, I felt sad last year when I saw that they were changing, because change is hard. Even though, honestly, I believe that the new changes are actually an improvement. As a minister, the old menu style was always sort of tricky. People like to choose, like, I want that one, not that one. But I remembered what it felt like to be invited into more options, more flexibility, more ways of being inspired, not limited only to the Bible. Although that was and continues to be a source of my own inspiration. And now, as a minister, from time to time, I teach Unitarian Universalist identity or Unitarian Universalist history. And here is what I tell people on the first day. Unlike some religious traditions, especially denominations within Christianity, they might be able to describe their family tree as a tree. Did you ever take this class with me, Christy? So let's take Lutheranism, for example. There's, sort of the origins of Christianity, and then sort of, it sort of consolidated into Catholicism, and then we've got Lutheranism over here off as a branch, and then maybe there's some like smaller branches off of Lutheranism, but that's basically the family tree. Unitarian Universalism is a swamp. It's not one tree, it's many trees, and it's connected by vines, and there's some snakes. It's a lot. I teach this class 2 hours at a time over several weeks. It's a lot, and it's very exciting. You might say that our Unitarian Universalist history is like a bit like Frankenstein's monster. A piece here, a piece there, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's alive. In fact, we call ourselves a living tradition. Somehow along the line, this became a tagline for us, that we call ourselves a living tradition. We like to say that we are not static or dead, but rather alive and responsive and ever evolving. Now, I tried to do some digging into the history of this terminology, and I found that at the Nashville General Assembly in the year 2000, it was noted that they were celebrating the 55th anniversary of the Service of the Living Tradition. The Service of the Living Tradition continues today, and it is a service that honors the transitions in professional leadership among Unitarian Universalists. So that means that service began in 1945. I wasn't around then, so I don't know. In the early 1980s, when the sources were being updated, the phrase, quote, "our living tradition draws from," was included. If you turn toward the front of your gray hymnal, you'll see our 7 principles and 6 sources, and it says our living tradition draws from these sources. But I couldn't find if that phrase existed in earlier versions. In 1988 to 1990, the Living Tradition Fund was established to support ministers and religious leaders in times of financial struggle. And finally, the gray hymnal that you're holding was published in 1993, and it is titled Singing the Living Tradition. So this is something that we are proud of, that we're alive, that we're not stuck in one old way. In fact, as a part of the liberal religious wing of religious traditions, we are defined by our willingness to grow and change and adapt, rather than conserve the traditions, which is one root of the term conservative, as opposed to progressive. Conservation, progress. In fact, when our two denominations, when Unitarianism and Universalism consolidated or merged in 1961, the General Assembly was considering several names for this newly formed tradition. One name that was actually in the lead for a while was the Liberal Church of America. Whenever I tell people this is the response I get. Happy? Nervous? Confused? Now, I wonder what that would have done for us today to be the Liberal Church of America, to be the Door County Liberal Fellowship. Right? Like, I don't know. But honestly, I mean, people drive by, they don't know what Unitarian Universalist means. That is two very long words that no one understands. There is some, I'm going to admit, there's some political baggage associated with being the liberal church, but it's just an interesting fact from our heritage. Liberal religionists we are, and in so far that we are progressive, that we are willing to change, to progress. So one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite heroes from our Unitarian Universalist history helps us understand where this part of our religious personality came from. It's the story of the martyr Francis David. So to set the stage, this is Transylvania in the 1500s. Transylvania is currently in Romania. It's a landlocked area in Eastern Europe. And the king at the time was a young king. His name was King John Sigismund. His mother had converted to Unitarianism. This was very early. They weren't even calling themselves Unitarian yet. And King John is trying to decide what religion he will be. And so he calls together the preachers of the major Christian branches, Catholicism, Lutheranism, Calvinism, and what we would call Unitarianism. And Francis David is the preacher representing Unitarianism. They debate in a public forum. And it says, the story goes, that Francis David just blew everybody away and converted the entire town of Koleshvar. And there's like black and white drawings of Francis David on a rock like this, with sunlight streaming down upon him from God. Whatever really happened, he at least convinced the king, and the king converted to Unitarianism. Now, at that time in Europe, this is the 1500s. When the king converts, everybody converts. You do what the king does. And so everyone was getting ready to do that. And Francis David said, no. We're not going to do that. We don't have to do that. And so they created, Francis and the king created something called the Edict of Torda. It was written in an area called Torda. And it's known to history as the Edict of Toleration. And it's known as the earliest example of religious freedom in the Western world. Here's one quote from the Edict of Torda. Ministers should everywhere preach and proclaim the gospel according to their understanding of it. And if their community is willing to accept this, good. If not, however, no one should be compelled by force if their spirit is not at peace. No one is permitted to threaten, imprison, or banish anyone because of their teaching, because faith is a gift from God. Pretty impressive. Unfortunately, a couple of years later, King John died in a carriage accident without heirs. So a new king took his place, and the new king was Catholic, and he tried to cancel the Edict of Torda. He didn't like this whole religious toleration thing. But according to the way the law was written, he couldn't. And so what he did instead was create a loophole. So there were these sort of protected religions under the edict. And he said, right, you're all protected under the edict unless you change anything about your worship, practice, or belief from the date of the issuing of the edict. And then you no longer fall under the edict. Sneaky. Now, Francis David had begun his religious formation as a Catholic priest. He had then become a Lutheran minister, and then he became a Calvinist superintendent. And then Francis David converted to Unitarianism. Maybe like some of you in this room have traveled religiously. It was not in Francis David's bones to sit still theologically. He was not going to do it. He is the one who gave to us the willingness to continually look at the evidence, to continually look at the world around us, to continually allow our relationships to impact us in new ways, to evaluate and reevaluate and assess and reimagine our faith in new ways. Now, imagine you are a fellow Unitarian at this time. Francis David has decided he's not going to change. He's not going to be quiet. He's not going to stop changing. He's not going to be quiet. Sorry, my son is a little distracting to me. And Francis David starts preaching new ideas from the pulpit. He starts saying, you know, if God is not three parts and is one part, maybe we shouldn't even be worshiping Jesus in the old ways, you know, things like that. People are like, what? Francis David's fellow compatriot, in fact, his mentor, whose name was Giorgio Biandrata, tried to get him to stop. Dude, be quiet. The king is going to throw us all in jail. But Francis David couldn't do it. And so Giorgio Biandrata had him tried and imprisoned. And he died in the prison, in the dungeon of the castle in Deva, Transylvania. His crime, he was formally charged with the crime of religious innovation. This is a true story. The fellowship in Appleton that I serve has a partner church of our own from Transylvania. These partner churches were assigned many years ago, and the partner church we were assigned is the congregation in Deva, Romania, which is the site of Francis David's martyrdom. It is a pilgrimage site for Unitarians around the world to go and pay homage to the man who died in service to our faith, in service to this idea of religious innovation. We are at our worst and at our best religious innovators. We've refused to stand still theologically, socially, or ethically. We are willing to try new things, to change, evolve, and grow, and it is not easy. We make mistakes. We try things that don't work. We change in ways that some people love and other people don't love. Now, I know for many folks, including some of you here, the recent changes with Article 2 of the UUA bylaws, that part that includes our sources and our principles, that change has felt hard. Those words, though we insist that we do not have a creed, has functioned in the place of a creed for about 30 years. Practically unchanged. Our 7 principles were practically unchanged for the majority of my lifetime, and I'm 42. Despite the call in our bylaws to review and update the principles every 10 years, every time it came up, it was voted down because those 7 statements had felt like the most solid thing we had. We don't have a whole lot of solid things as Unitarian Universalists, but we had the 7 principles, by darn it. We had printed them on t-shirts. We had them on wallet cards. The UU Fellowship in Appleton even painted them on the wall. But they are not intended to be a creed. They were not handed down at Mount Sinai. They were voted on at a meeting, a business meeting, a bylaw meeting. It's way less cool than Mount Sinai. And this time around, this 10-year cycle, this time, many people around our entire Unitarian Universalist Association were involved in revisions over the course of 3 years of conversation to make and vote for some changes. We're gonna have to change our wallet cards, maybe even repaint some walls. Or not. We don't have to. They're the UUA's bylaws. They are the agreements that our congregations make with each other in order to be a part of the Unitarian Universalist Association. They are not an individual creed. They are not belief statements for you to hold. They were not prior to the change, and they still are not. So if you don't like them, fine. No harm, no foul. But this is who we are. And the fact that when I would teach UU history prior to this past summer, I would say, for 35 years, we haven't changed this thing that we say we're so into change. And we couldn't do it. We finally did. We are the people of religious innovation. I want to tell you a story about a man from the church in Annapolis where I served from 2010 to 2017. Daryl is still alive. I think he's like 90 now. Daryl was one of our elders. He was a cowboy from Wyoming. He was really tall. He was a born-again anti-racist. He would tell everybody how he had discovered his own racism and was learning to combat it. He sat in this seat, like right there, every single Sunday. And one time I found a picture from prior, like from the 70s of the church in Annapolis. And it had like orange chairs and kind of olive green walls. And there was Daryl, same seat. I was like, man, he's a lot younger in that picture, but that is definitely Daryl. Daryl was my go-to long timer, the guy that I would invite to come to the new member ceremonies. And he would speak to the new members about everything that he had loved about the congregation that he had joined umpteen years earlier, and how almost none of it was still true of the church. But he talked to them about how those newcomers that he was greeting right then, right there, would not be there if everything was the same as when he had joined. And he warned them to love this place, to love this faith, but be willing to let go of specifically what they loved. Because it would change. And he said to them, please be willing to fall in love with what it becomes. Because this is who we will be. This is what is most challenging and most wonderful about our living tradition, about our heritage as heretics. Heresy, by the way, just means to choose. Now, folks might say to choose wrong. But I wrote a curriculum years ago for middle schoolers called Happy Heretics. Because every turn of that family tree, we chose wrong. We were the heretics every turn of the way, but that has brought us to who we are today. For those people who joined and fell in love with Unitarian Universalism in the 1950s or 60s, which was at the heyday of the humanist influence on our faith, the shifts we are experiencing now feels like we are moving away from something that they love. But I assure you that those people who found and loved this faith in the 1950s and 60s had fallen in love with something that was very challenging to the people who had joined in the 20s and 30s. I promise. And by the time I retire, it is my sincere hope that the faith that I serve at that time will be unrecognizable to the me today. Except in that I know that we will hold true to who we are as religious seekers, that we will be open to the pieces and parts of inspiration wherever we can find them, that we will be committed, as we have been since the time of Francis David, to religious innovation in this name, in the spirit of love and justice, and seeking community and wholeness. And we will always be willing to say of ourselves and of our tradition, join me now, like Frankenstein. It's alive! Come on, you can do it. It's alive! Very good. Amen. May it be so.
Thank you, Christina. So joy and hope seem to be the words of the week, don't they? And thank you for bringing us joy and hope this week or today. And I feel joyful and hopeful and thankful for a lot of things today. In addition to Christina's being with us today, I feel that way for Beth coming with us today and being back with us again, and for our Ephraim friends for being with us today. Thankful to you and thankful to those people who volunteered to help make the service run today. So thank you for everything, and thanks. We can have hope and thanks and joy and all those things too for our UU faith, which seems to be synonymous with those words of joy and hope and freedom and thanks and heretics, maybe. So we have a lot to be thankful and joyful for. So let's finish our service today with hymn number 300. And if you feel comfortable, please rise for that, and we'll finish there and then with the closing words. With heart and mind and voice and hand, may we this time and place transcend to make our purpose understood. The mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path of ready peace, wherever light of conscience leads. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart to search, makes of the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
As we find ourselves in this time and place, may we go forward with the knowledge that we are made from the innovations that came before us. May we have the courage to continue the tradition of innovation with love at the center. Go in peace.